Good afternoon and welcome to Starcast from Planet Waves. I'm Eric Francis Coppolino, your friendly neighborhood astrologer here with the edition accompanying the weekly horoscope for Thursday, the 27th of March, 2025. This edition will look closely at the chart for the partial solar eclipse that takes place early on the morning of the 29th in New York time. And this eclipse is another thing than just itself. This eclipse seems to be a marker in time for the ingress of Neptune into Aries. Now, this is a pretty big deal. Neptune has not done this, that is to say, entered Aries, since April 1861. So we're experiencing something that last happened before the United States Civil War, the war between the states. And I think it's interesting now that there are a lot of people who are gunning for civil war. When you look at a lot of the behavior of many of the people currently in power, that would seem to be the logical outcome of their point of view. And they're not going to come out and say this, but you can see it in many of the things that they do, and frankly, quite a few Americans think that we're going to have to settle this with our neighbors by war. This has been kind of brewing quietly. I don't think the majority of Americans meekly feel this way, but I think that there's a small, significant minority who are driving opinion. And also you have this situation where a lot of people just kind of have determined or discovered or believe or something that we are in the end times. Most of us who are, let's say, spiritual rather than members of fundamentalist religious organizations tend to not understand the vehemence and the power of the fundamentalist Christian movement. We used to be called the Dominionist movement. There's a lot of different names for it. And so all this is, lurking, bubbling, brewing, and simmering in the background. And the movement of Neptune is significant of a great many things. And one of them is of spiritual beliefs, because that is one of the topics that Neptune covers. And Planet Waves FM coming up, that'll go out on. Actually, I'm linking it from this edition. I go over a number of the principles of Neptune, like the things that Neptune is associated with in our lives. This is an extension of the thesis I've been developing over many years of observing Neptune and how people respond under Neptune. And while Neptune can represent things like faith and inspiration, more frequently, Neptune describes things like denial and delusion and dissociation and drink and drugs and a number of other D words. I can never get them the same twice. And, I don't want to overhype this, but the thing with Neptune is that you tend to not see what is happening under the influence of Neptune for quite a while. It doesn't make itself manifest, and then by the time you look back and you realize what's been going on, you might not remember that it was Neptune that was doing it, because Neptune has a kind of evasive quality to it. I've even had it disappear from charts. I'm like staring right at the chart and I can't see it, and I've got to look 3 more times, then I finally find it. And it has that elusive quality. In fact, the discovery story of Neptune, which spans from Galileo seeing it first, the great Galileo, who discovered the cycles of Venus, the moons of Jupiter, and other things like this, was unable to recognize that this object that had moved in retrograde motion by some arc minutes over the course of 1 month was actually a planet. And that's quite amazing. I mean, even in that day, especially somebody like Galileo knew that fixed stars don't move in any visible way. They're going to just be right where they are over very long periods of time. Their movement is going to be measured in a degree over, I think, 70 years. So that's not the kind of thing that you can notice the movement in 1 month. But Galileo did not notice it. And then if you read the, I think, fairly accurate, since nobody really cares, Wikipedia page on the discovery of Neptune, you'll see that this story of Neptune being seen and then being lost and being seen and being lost is the story of the discovery of Neptune. And then finally someone, I think in 45, notes that there it is. There we have it. Yeah, just correcting that, September of 1846. So from its astronomical discovery, Neptune has been this kind of phantom, this elusive energy, this elusive physical object. I mean, I'm so amazed that Galileo recorded in his notebooks the movement of this thing and didn't say that has to be a planet. So he has the first pre-discovery sighting, but he's not the discoverer of Neptune. So anyway, we are in this rather rich moment, and I don't think anybody really knows what's going on, but I think there are some theories that are better than other theories, and we're kind of in this, that machine that has all the ping pong balls in it, that they use to draw lottery numbers. That's supposed to be, perfectly even. It's not going to favor one ping pong ball over another. And you've got just this, they're like popping like popcorn in this thing the size of a water cooler. We're kind of inside that thing right now, and we don't really know which, what's actually going to happen. Now, you never know what's actually going to happen, but yet we've never had so many variables opened up at the same time. And I've said many times and continue to say that what we are experiencing is a massive case of digititis. The confusion, the insane behavior of corporate and government leaders, and sometimes the unpredictable behavior of certain individuals around us, and also the alienation and this sense of something missing, and the dissolving of society in many different ways, including social society and relational society. They've become things that are unrecognizable to people who knew things long previous or even modestly previous to them. All of this is the result of the bottom falling out of consciousness associated with complete over-immersion, overexposure to the digital environment. Now, I am following a fair number of commentaries, and I read the comments to my own Substack, and I see a good few Substacks, and all kinds of people who count themselves as erudite and all that, and I don't see anyone meekly acting as if they understand this. They're still treating the technology of the digital environment as a thing, as some kind of an object or technological development, rather than as an experience that is transforming humanity. And by that I mean transforming each one of us as individuals, and also transforming us in our collective expression. It is changing digital overexposure, including all of this generative AI and deep fake and all forms of artificial intelligence, which seems to be presented to us as this thing that we're always chasing, the real thing. We're going to get there in so many weeks and so many months and so many years, and suddenly, everything's going to be replaced, and there's not going to be any computer programmers, and not going to be any, in so many years, there'll be 90% of doctors, nurses, teachers, and therapists are all going to be replaced by AI models. This is changing us. It has very little to do with whether your Google search comes up and claims to be AI. That's more or less always been the same kind of thing, typing a query into a computer and getting some kind of a response. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about what this does to our concept of what it means for each of us as an individual to be a human. And it tends to happen in a way that is not perceptible to normal, workaday human awareness. And we see this with many, many other waves of technological development, that it's only, for most people, apparent in hindsight, in retrospect, what actually happened to kids, for example. I mean, everybody thought that it was just a wonderful thing to shut down society in 2020. And then over the next few years, you started to see what damage this did to children. And now that conversation has been completely dropped. And that is basically the way that the human race views technological developments. And of course, the purveyors of those technological developments are interested mainly in the marketing angle. They're interested in recovering their substantial investment that they have made. All of these, for example, now we're in this kind of AI phase. A lot of it is a head trip. A lot of it is deceptive marketing. A lot of it is the usual pie in the sky. Someday we'll all be able to sit on the beach and sip pina coladas and not have to do anything because machines will do it all for us. But actually, what's really being reformed and reshaped is our concept of what it means to be who we are. And I'm saying this because this is the development that is contemporaneous with this series of eclipses and with Neptune entering Aries. Now, these eclipses have been quite impressive. I mean, if we just going back to last year, the total solar eclipse conjunct Chiron to the arc minute, which streaked across North America from Mexico, from the west side of Mexico, all the way out to Nova Scotia, covering an enormous swath of the United States, a very wide eclipse that many, many people saw. It passed through populated territories, and it was easy for a lot of people to get there. Countless millions of people were in the path of totality. I mean, this is an enormously powerful event, and it's conjunct Chiron. There is a call for healing. There is a concern being raised, an awareness that we're being called to have about the necessity to focus on healing. And it seems like, who has time for healing when we're just coping with one thing after the next, and maybe a robot will figure out what's wrong and save us. And someday when I'm 70, I'll go to artificial intelligence therapy, and it'll straighten out my mind. This is all really, really messing with us. And I think we're taking for granted things that should not be taken for granted. And I will tell you this, because I know the history of many technological developments, it's just this thing I've suddenly somehow got become deeply involved with, mainly from seeing Andrew McLuhan show up on my Facebook page. And then I met the McLuhan family and started going into this subject quite deeply. I think this was around 2015 or 2016. Beginning, by the way, with the notion that the environment in which we live tends to be invisible to us. It's not perceptible under normal conditions. You need either special perceptive powers, pattern recognition abilities, which can be advanced artistic abilities or childlike perception to be able to see these things for what they are. Most of us are completely in the dark. And this is why I attribute a lot of what is happening to Neptune. So because it is this property, it represents this property of invisibility, this property of now you see it, now you don't. The greatest mind, thus far in the history of astronomy, Galileo Galilei, sees it and doesn't know what it is, but he dutifully records its position in his notebook. I mean, I know I go overboard on that one thing. So therefore, an eclipse of the kind that we're about to have, which takes place by the one, let's see, hold on a second. The eclipse takes place at 6:57 in the morning, Eastern Daylight Time, on Saturday. And that is an exact alignment of the moon and the sun, very close to the north node of the moon. The north node is in Pisces, close enough to get an eclipse, but in this case, a partial eclipse. In my view, well, let's briefly go over eclipses, and I've also got a video below that I released a little bit early, I think on Monday or something, that talks about the properties of eclipses. But what eclipses come with generally is a sense of experience being accelerated or concentrated. There's also the sense that events are fated or in some way karmic, as if the hand of providence is on your shoulder, somehow guiding you, or the interactions that you have seem as if they are fated. Also, there is a kind of contrary to that idea, is that eclipses are pattern-setting events, and I observe can be used consciously as such. That you can take the time around eclipses, and there's still time to do this if you haven't picked up on this yet, to do what it is you want to do and what you need to do, and to start making the changes that you need to make. And in the let's say the spiritual temporal soil around time of eclipses is especially fertile to starting these kinds of things. Now, this is all happening with important Aries point events. One of them is Neptune going into Aries. So Neptune is going to sit right, it's going to go right on the Aries point, and that is predictive of a conjunction of Saturn and Neptune on the Aries point in early 2026. When they finally align and make an exact conjunction, they are going to be exactly conjunct the Aries point. And the Aries point is a little like, I don't know, have you ever seen a Fish concert? So Trey Anastasio has this thing that he does, and I've seen it in most of the shows, that he understands where to find a point of resonance on the stage, where his guitar and his amp resonate the entire stage in a way that greatly amplifies the sense of the presence of his guitar. I mean, like really, really big. Like the guitar itself is only so big, the rest of it is sound reinforcement that's moving that sound out to the audience. But you can find these spots on the stage where the whole stage resonates as the guitar itself. And he knows how to do this. He's an unusual guy. And that's one way to think of how the Aries point works. It is a point of resonance. And as a point of resonance, it connects the individual, in this case Anastasio and his guitar, with the collective, in this case the audience, by greatly magnifying the vibration of the instrument. So you got to think of yourself as the instrument. Now, there's a number of kind of expressions of the Aries point that include the sense of overwhelming events. 9/11 is a perfect Aries point event. These events that loft the individual into another sphere where they're suddenly in the midst of this collective of a certain kind, or that seem to come bursting into our homes and into our consciousness. Now, I mean, I feel like I'm describing what happens every single day in our time, and we are very much in a time of a kind of an era of the Aries point. And now we've got this really exciting activity on Smackaroo on the Aries point that is going to culminate in early 2026 with a Saturn-Neptune conjunction on the Aries point. And this has not happened any time since 1 BC. We have checked using two completely different software applications, professional, astronomical calculation devices. There's never in long ahead of recorded history been, again, 1 BC, right? So like this is printing presses 1,500 years later. There's not been a Saturn-Neptune conjunction on the Aries point. So this is heading towards something very large. And while we here are kind of paddling our canoes around in the water of society at this time, it's not easy to notice how much is changing around us and how that is influencing all that we are seeing and feeling and hearing and becoming, and the way in which we understand things and the way in which we understand ourselves. Humans tend to be myopic. They're not very visionary. And I think humans are highly intelligent, lazy thinkers. The problem I have with most people is not a lack of their intelligence. It's how they either apply their intelligence in a prejudiced way, or a lazy way of skipping steps in their thoughts and not checking back over their arithmetic, not going back and asking themselves if their conclusion in any way matches the premise and all this. I have to, as an editor, as a reader, as an investigator, as a writer, I'm constantly evaluating what I perceive to be the intelligence level of other people. This includes software developers I work with. I've got to understand their mental style. I can't just simply assume that because they're a software developer, they know more than me, even about software development. If I know facts of logic, for example, or I know of pitfalls and flaws, I have to be able to notice whether people are living up to the intelligence that they claim to have. And quite frankly, most people far exceed in their perception of how intelligent they are. This is another very serious problem. They think they're like 5 times more intelligent than they are, and they don't know when they don't know. These are all problems that are going to affect our ability to perceive the reality of where we are. The lazy thinking, the myopia, the inability to really conceive of the past or the future. And all of these problems are hugely magnified by the digital environment itself. They're problems created by the digital environment, they're magnified by the digital environment, and then they condition people to be even more like that. And I'm telling you, there is something that people are not getting. And none of this is a matter of opinion. It's a matter of careful, thoughtful observation and understanding of the current developments in the context of what has happened in the past, and drawing a diversity of trajectory lines and seeing where we might end up. So the example that I can give, and that I do give over and over again, is that, for example, most people perceive the events of 2020 as being some kind of societal response to a virus. And I'm saying absolutely not. That was only the surface layer excuse for what was going on, when really there was 2 things going on. A massive financial reorganization happening. This has not broken the surface of the legacy media. They're acting as if the repo market meltdown in 2019 never happened. I bet you've never even heard of this. Well, why the heck are you hearing it in an astrology podcast? Well, that's because I moonlight as an investigative reporter. And I learned this from Professor Fabio Vigi in Italy. And this is well established that there was a financial meltdown happening in 2019 tantamount to what was going on in 2008. Only this time they didn't present it as a financial meltdown. They presented it as a pandemic, because it's much more sellable as a pandemic to move around trillions and trillions of dollars. The biggest movement of money in history was in 2020. Oh, well, that's just a coincidence. It's just because MN 908947 was floating around inside of a computer somewhere, and so on and so forth. Thing 2 is that the events of 2020 were I must quote Ross Perot, the great big sucking sound. Only the great big sucking sound was the sound of everything being sucked onto the digital plane. Everything, all at once. Like, for example, nursery school, Harvard University, Brown, Princeton, and Yale universities, the New York public schools, the LA public schools, the Chicago public schools, the San Francisco public schools, hey, Miami, while we're at it, and every other city, town, state, town, village in the United States, sucked onto the internet all at once. What the hell did that have to do with MN 908947? this claimed viral sequence discovered by somebody named, quote unquote, discovered, made up in a computer by somebody named Fan Wu, paid for by none other than Bill Gates. So I would ask you to suspend your belief structure around the events of 2020 to understand the events of 2020 better so that you can understand the events of right now better, because we are in another great big sucking sound. And this great big sucking sound is the slightly less shrill sound of intelligence being outsourced, thought itself, the thing that makes humans human. The ability to make a painting on the Lascaux cave complex in France. I mean, have you ever seen those? The paintings in the Lascaux cave are absolutely stunning. They're 17,000 years ago. I think this is one of these moments of humanity emerging in its true potential. The ability to craft tools, the ability to design a bridge that will cross a river, to design a bridge that will cross a river that will last for hundreds or thousands of years, etc., etc. This is humanity at its most essentially human. We can also include the capacity to love, the capacity to bond with our fellows, the capacity to grieve losses, and so forth. And that is connected to the creative process, because what humans do is we usually create our way out of these situations, right? That's why there's so much good art, is because people are creating their way through grief. Now we are outsourcing this capacity to think and to feel and to perceive and to reason and to solve problems and to get work done. The letters AI really mean outsourcing native human intelligence to something else. Something else. We don't know who or what it is, who or what it's capable of, who or what it is based upon. Okay, so now that I've said like what I think is going on in the world, what I perceive, what I observe is going on in the invisible environment, indicated astrologically by Neptune making contact with the Aries point. For the first time since before the Civil War, that is a long time ago. There is no living memory of this, and Neptune was not widely used in astrology at that time, so there are basically no notes from our astrological predecessors. We have to look at history. Okay. There is this very tricky thing that happens, and the tricky thing that happens is later on Saturday, Mercury retrograde is going backwards, apparent motion backwards through the zodiac, and it is going to be in the first degree of Aries. That is to say, the Aries point at the time of this eclipse, which takes place a little bit later in Aries, but is itself still very close to the Aries point. And Mercury is retrograding toward the last arc minute of Pisces, Mercury is retrograding toward the last arc minute of Pisces, while Neptune is in the last arc minute of Pisces and getting ready to move into Aries on the next day. And what happens is, essentially, they change places. They exchange places. This is wild. I mean, how would I do? I need a screen capture video so that I even get that. The program that animates this for me is called IO Sprite, and I'm using computers that were last updated in 2019 to be able to see this happening for what it is not the kind of thing you're going to easily see in the ephemeris. For example, I don't even know if astrologers use the ephemeris anymore. This is very, very tricky, and the implication here is to trust nothing at face value. You can't trust. You have to test your own perceptions. You have to test what you read. You have to reality check against other perceptive people, and not be so believable of the persuasive people, right? There's a persuasiveness that people are getting very good at as digital presenters. The quality of, and I don't mean necessarily this is a good thing, but the quality of digital presenters is going up considerably. People are getting practice at this, and they are becoming very persuasive at flinging their bullshit. And so you have to have your critical reasoning on, and you have to use the beautiful mind that you have and not simply be believing anything or taking anyone's word for anything. Someone asked me, someone I've known a long time said, they actually kind of chirped, well, where do you get your news? And I had to think about this for like a month before I understood the nature of her question. What she meant was, what do I read that I just simply believe? And my initial response to her was, I redo every story of any consequence. Anything that actually matters to me in some way, anything that I personally think is significant, I'll redo the story. Or I will read 20, 30, 50 articles. I will be constantly checking the perceptions of intelligent people that I trust. I don't get my news anywhere. For me, I write the news. And you know what goes into, at least goes into my sausage. I run this, spiritually wholesome sausage factory. But even when you're reading my work and listening to what I'm saying, run it through your own mind. Now, most of what I'm doing is not like telling you what is so in terms of specifics. Much of what I'm doing is my best to give you perceptual and mental, cognitive tools to be able to perceive reality for yourself. And this is a special way of thinking. It is a special way of reading. It is a certain kind of, it's like halfway between mindfulness and situational awareness. You cannot relax at any time if living in reality matters to you at all. Lots of love, and bye for now.